Verse 6, then she arose with her daughters-in-law that she might return from the country of Moab. Well, this verse takes us back to verse 4 of last week, which said, and they dwelt there about 10 years. The word for dwelt, as we learned, meant literally to sit. Now the time for sitting is ended, and so the Hebrew says she stood up. The imagery is exciting, and it shows us that activity lies ahead. And so she arises with her daughter-in-law. Again, the Hebrew term is very descriptive. The word for daughters-in-law is actually chaloteha, which means brides. She stood up with her brides. And that doesn't mean her brides literally, but the brides of her sons. It is with the two of them that she arises and begins her return from Moab. And there's a reason why she is now engaged in this course of action, which is, for she had heard in the country of Moab that the Lord had visited his people by giving them bread. Somehow, and without the Bible further explaining it, word came to her that the famine was over and it was time to return. And the reason is given that the Lord Jehovah had visited his people by giving them bread. The word Lord there is the Hebrew word Yehovah, or Jehovah as we might call it. Naomi has stayed no longer in this foreign land than his necessity required her to. Again, as in verse 1, the term Sadeh, or the fields of Moab, is used. This is another indication that the story was written in Israel, because the term Sadeh is used when speaking of foreign countries. We are asked to view these events from the perspective of the people who are the redeemed of the Lord. From that point of view, we are to look at how he deals with such events. The Hebrew word here translated as visited is the word pakad. It is a word which has no comparable single word in the English to describe it, and so it has to be described kind of in a multitude of words. It indicates overseeing or looking into a matter and then attending to it. In other words, the Lord divinely looked into the affairs of Israel and attended to the famine which had gone on for so long by giving them abundance once again. Because the book of Ruth is an insert story showing God's attendance to the affairs of mankind in order to meet his redemptive purposes, then it can be rightly assumed that the entire scenario of the move to Moab, the marriage of these women, and then the sending of the news to Naomi that the famine had ended was completely and surely for the purpose of directing the events of the book of Ruth. The famine, the death, the marriages, the next two deaths, and even the ending of the famine were all designed to bring about the events to come in the verses and the chapters ahead in the book of Ruth. Real people and real circumstances were used by the sovereign God to give us a look at this story. So imagine the importance of the words that we're looking at right now.